Okay, so we decided to double up this time, and so we're going to be going over chapters 7 and 8. Chapter 6 was quite long, and then it seemed like 7 and 8, if we put them together, was about the same length as 6. So we're going to feel it out today about how long it takes us to go over 2 chapters to see if that's something we want to do again, or if there's just too much content to go over, and it's better to take them still one at a time. So let's jump right to it. Chapter 7 is all about Vanity Fair.
Yeah.
And yet it's not about the magazine. So instead, how might you guys describe the nature of Vanity Fair? Of the book, rather than the magazine. What is Vanity Fair?
All vain stuff.
All the pleasures of life.
All the vain stuff, all the pleasures of life. Yeah, so it sort of is a fair. I kind of get not carnival fair, more like flea market fair. I sort of envision like a bunch of booths set up with these vendors hawking their wares. But it's got kind of a festival atmosphere about it. So maybe this is like you ever been to the flea market in Auburndale when they do the circus, or when the powwow is in town? So I sort of feel like a combination of flea market and carnival. If you have ever been to, what am I thinking?
Well, how about
Maybe a Renaissance fair, or if you have ever been to Highland Games or something similar, there are things to see, things to do, things to buy. And there's just like a lot of stuff all around for you to look at and maybe purchase, or
different streets and
whatever
specialties.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we've talked about the pleasures of life or temptations. Why call it Vanity Fair?
well, it's all about me.
It's all about me, my pleasures. And it's making kind of a specific scriptural allusion to what?
Everything is meaningless.
Okay. All is vanity would be the King James rendering from the Solomon's words in Ecclesiastes.
Isaiah 40.
We might say all is meaningless, or whatever. We've got an Isaiah quote in there as well. So vanity in this sense has maybe a few meanings. The vainness of self,
Aggrandizement.
self-aggrandizement, sure, yeah. Basically, a kind of a self-centered attitude where it's about making yourself look better, feel better, enjoy more, but also the vanity and the things are vain. Things are empty. Things are meaningless. Things are worthless. I get a little bit of a carnival sense in that as well. Like you play those carnival games to win a prize, you spend like $20 to win something that they probably bought on Oriental Trading for 99 cents. So there's that emptiness or meaninglessness, the vain part of it. These are temptations to purchase that cost us way more than they're actually worth. They may look flashy, but they're cheap. So
But they're not meant to last either.
they're not meant to last. Yeah, it's some of these things that you might get at the carnival or in the claw machine, or I mean, even if it looks okay, it's so cheaply done, it's going to be the first thing to break.
Sure.
Um,
But your
I-
kid wants it.
I think I'm safe in this because I'm pretty sure that Lula is not watching these videos. But she bought a ring in Israel. They were I don't know, some kind of marketplace or what. And so it was, oh, and it's got the Hebrew in it, and so she brought home to me. And I'd never had one of those jewelry that turned your skin green before. Like I thought that wasn't real, it was an exaggeration. Oh no. And it bent. Right? So she felt super frustrated about it. I mean, it was the thought that counts, and that the sentiment I appreciated. But she was sold something as though it would be special. And it turned out to be, very poorly made.
Yep.
So where does Vanity Fair come from? Who built it and why? And this is maybe the biggest, no, I'll use it as a follow-up. So where does it come from?
Beelzebub.
Okay. We've got the infernal team here, Beelzebub, Apollyon, and Legion, along with others. And 5,000 years ago, they built it on the path to the celestial city. So why would they do that?
But you have to go through it.
You would have to go through it, and it was a way to tempt and trap and snag and lure.
Lord.
We know these pilgrims have to walk this. Well, what better place to set a trap than where they're going to have to go through? So my follow-up is, we have a king who has built this road, created this path, walked this path, oversees this path. Why allow such a place, not even next to the path, right smack dab on it?
The test.
A test? Okay.
And you get through without.
I don't think it was ever explicitly defined in the chapter. And to be honest, that's one of the questions I had. Like, God does not tempt us. He allows temptation. But this seemed to be a little egregious to me, like, because it can't be avoided.
I just decided it was a test.
Another test, sure, yeah.
It specifically says our Lord went through it.
He went through it himself. So certainly the test is passable, even if we are all doomed to fail. It is passable, for he passed it. And there's nothing that we're tempted with that is not common to humanity, and that Christ himself did not resist. We get
Let me just illustrating that point.
as a matter of fact, when it says that the king has walked through Vanity Fair, that's also a biblical allusion. What are they alluding to?
Temptation of Christ.
The temptation of Christ in the wilderness. So this is Satan saying, look at these things. I will give you all, I will give you all that all these cities that bow down and worship me. Throw yourself off the temple, all this kind of stuff. So that Vanity Fair is the common temptations of humanity in a sense that Jesus is able to resist. So it is resistible, but yeah, I guess I was kind of waiting for something a little more explicit about why this was permitted to be built on the path itself and to remain, because it almost seems a little unfair in the sense that you have to walk the path. So that means you have to go through this, but then again, life is not fair.
Yeah.
No. And you can't shelter from bad things forever.
Right.
I guess you could if you were.
Well, but even still, though you would face the temptations of humanity as a cloistered nun, but just in a different way.
Yeah.
I will say, keep in mind that the lead us not into temptation of the Lord's Prayer is really a somewhat clumsy English rendering, which made more sense. It's a little archaic now, and we don't speak in such terms. It's not wrong. It's just we use the same verbiage differently. That lead us not to temptation is not, please stop tempting me, God. And that it sort of implies that. I think that's how contemporary ears hear that. It really means more along the lines of, as you lead me through life, could you please choose the detours that take me around the potholes of life?
Help us not to be tempted.
Help us not to be tempted. Save us from the time of trial is
Yeah.
another rendering.
I like
Okay. So what kind of things do we see in Vanity Fair?
kind of-
Oh, it lists a whole bunch of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's tons of. All of it exciting.
Everything, yeah, everything that appeals to your pride,
Okay.
that appeals to your lust, or
Yeah. Is it exciting? Is it titillating?
Oh, yeah.
Does it stroke your ego? If it does, then it's either there for sale for you to purchase, or remember he says there's constant round the clock entertainers
Yeah.
walking around, sort of like at a fair. There's the juggler, there's the clown on a unicycle, there's the barbershop quartet in the corner, but they're all of these entertainers are seeking to still titillate.
At the fair, you could purchase houses, land, trades, places, honors, promotion, titles.
Right. Now, and a lot of these things are not bad things. As a matter of fact, we will get into a discussion in a little bit about the nature of these things, as far as your own motivations are concerned. Because houses are for sale in Vanity Fair, does that imply then that houses are wicked? And I would say,
No.
there's something about Vanity Fair itself, which is taking otherwise good or neutral things and presenting them in a way that is not good or neutral. So we've talked about these are things that titillate, these are things that inflame your passions, these are things that stroke your ego. The difference between a house then as a home versus something that strokes your ego.
So it's on the next page, they're just obvious, like honors, promotions, titles.
Right.
Countries, kingdoms. You don't buy them.
Well, there you go. Things that you don't buy, except maybe in a place like this where you could. How could you buy a kingdom? Well, Satan was trying to sell one to Jesus.
Yeah.
I'll give it to you, and all you have to do is worship me. Some things are for sale, but they're not for sale for money, for your soul, for your dignity, for your integrity, for your maturity, whatever it might be. There are certain things that it might cost you that go beyond the dollars and the cents. And these are clearly things that are intending to sell part or all of your soul.
You know, what came to my mind was a facade of paper people lined up in a big, like a fairground, but they're all propped up with.
Okay.
wood, yeah, behind them. It's not real. It's just.
I kind of get evil carnival vibes, where from a distance, oh, they're clowns and they're acrobats and stuff, but you get closer and they just got that real seedy,
Yeah.
creepy quality about it. Come here, little boy, so you've got to go through it.
Yeah.
Faithful and Christian are there together. And so there is all these things. We don't have to go in depth in describing the specifics about the Vanity Fair. We've kind of described in general, but then something happens while they're going through Vanity Fair. And that's really the crux of the entire chapter. What happens? All right,
So
so
the-
now we've moved from kind of a passive spectator to a more aggressive sales position. They are now given a hard sell. If you've ever gone to a store or a car lot or a timeshare presentation, whatever that starts off real easygoing. Oh, just look at all these great things. But when they notice that you're looking and not buying,
Yeah.
that's when they start coming in. And now the hard sell, the pressure starts getting ratcheted up. The salesman wants to give you his pitch. So we've got now people who are coming and they need an answer. What are you going to buy? And first of all, who gives an answer? Faithful or Christian? Okay,
I mean, they're certainly the people don't like them because of the way they're dressed. The
And the way
fact
they're
that they talk about God,
Yeah,
and
they're-
they really
not
don't like the
participating.
merchandise.
yeah, they're not
they don't-
participating. You can kind of see the people who are not happy to be there, who are not jumping in and, laughing and dancing with the dancing girls or whatever. They clearly stand out as not wanting to belong. I thought it was Faithful who said it first, but it just says they said, so it could be both of them. But what do you want to buy? They both looked at him seriously and said, we buy the truth. We buy the truth. What an odd thing to say. So and that basically sets off everything.
Yeah.
Everything that happens comes from the consequence of that statement. So why say it? Why say what they said? What's the point of saying we buy the truth?
If they get hold of the truth, they can do anything they want to do.
Say that again.
If they get truth, if they get hold of truth, they can take it and do anything they want to do with it. They can.
Christian and Faithful or the people of Vanity Fair?
The people who do it.
Okay.
Seemed like they were also saying like, this is smoky mirrors.
This is smoke and mirrors. This is all
Yeah.
This is all fake and illusion. This is all spray painted gold. It's not the real thing. Okay. What about these things are true? The promotions or the self-aggrandizement or
They
whatever,
exist.
they do exist. They're being presented though in a way that that is not true because they're not someone at some point did something where it forced a pizza box manufacturer to print on the outside of the pizza box, please remove pizza before eating. Someone somewhere did something. Forces a sticker to be placed on gas pumps to say, do not drink or put into any other bodily orifice. So clearly, neutral or good things can be used against their purposes.
Sure.
And in essence, I would say that makes them false. They would, using gas to drink instead of using it to fuel your car, doesn't make gas bad, but it makes it wrong for the purpose. It is false to drink gas in that sense.
Tastes terrible.
Doesn't taste good, and it's also poisonous. These things exist. That house exists. That self-aggrandizement exists. But because it's being used for the wrong reason, it's not true. in the same manner that it's not lasting. Houses get old, they break, they get sold, promotions, you get fired, or one day you'll be dead and it doesn't matter, whatever it is. None of the things that are for sale are eternal. None of them are lasting. And none of them can fit for the purposes of which they're being sold. Ultimately, the appeal on our vanity is, this will make you happy. Because it will make you handsome or beautiful. It will make you popular. It will, when we think about vanity, we're thinking like handsomeness, beauty, popularity, whatever. But that's because you will be happy. If I was prettier, I would be happier. If I was richer, I would be happier. If I had that promotion, I would be happier. Whatever it might be, but these things will not make you happy, or if they do, it will be so temporary. It won't last. And so they are not true. We buy the truth, in essence, is to say, what I have to give, I will only exchange for the eternal. I will only exchange for things which are genuine and real and lasting and fit for purpose. And none of these things are. So that was a rather provocative thing to say. Why is it so provocative?
It goes against what we think we're supposed to do.
Okay. Especially there.
Yeah.
Like,
Insulting them.
it is an insult, whether or not it is expressed in an insulting fashion. We buy the truth, by implication says, you're not selling it. All this stuff around me is not the truth. That's why I'm not buying. And that is a provocative statement, because it, whether explicitly, it is implicitly insulting to them. Except, of course, it happens to be the truth. So slander is when you say it. Libel is when you print it. The one overarching defense for slander or libel is the truth. You're such a dirty, awful person, and if it damages your reputation, maybe you're going to say that's slanderous, and it would be, unless, and this is the only escape out of the charge, if it happens to be accurate. So if you really are that bad, then that is the one, like when a newspaper prints something that seems very irresponsible about somebody. If it happens to be true, it is by definition no longer libelous. So these guys are insulted, but he's telling the truth, that what they're selling is not true. So the insult is more about the injury to their pride. But what are the consequences for this? Ultimately, it's going to be death. So this whole chapter, or this, I think it's a chapter, on trial at Vanity Fair. And we actually get like these weird, creepy court proceedings. And it all stems from this moment. This is the precipitating act that gets Faithful arrested and put on trial for his life. Now, why would just saying, even if it's an insult, we only buy the truth, why would that be so terrible that the authorities of Vanity Fair want punishment for Faithful saying this?
I was saying the same thing to myself. I was
Okay.
saying, why didn't they just let them go?
Right.
They-
You don't want to be here, then leave.
Yeah.
Yeah, we don't, yeah, you're harshing my mellow and killing my buzz. So why don't you just be gone? That would be the easiest thing to do. So why are they so violently opposed to this perceived insult?
Because they're right.
Okay, so why is that so awful? why does it have to be destroyed?
Because it's not, your ideas are not mine, and I'm in charge, and I say.
Okay. Any hint that what is happening at Vanity Fair is wrong or worthless hits to the very core of their existence, and they can brook no opposition. And I think there's multiple reasons for this, not the least of which is because these are all fake and empty, because it's all smoke and mirrors, the concept of a house of cards, it looks impressive and stable, but even a puff of wind knocks the whole thing down. Vanity Fair, as expansive as it is, because it sells just fakes and nothing, is always this close from being destroyed utterly.
Do the people there know that, or they just?
Well, and here's the other thing. This is not scriptural. This is Milton, but this is a commentary steeped in scripture. That the devil is a proud spirit and cannot bear to be mocked. Laughing at evil infuriates evil, even more than opposition, because laughter cuts at the very heart of pride, where evil stands in opposition to good.
So laughing at and not with.
Right. You can't, not being taken seriously is even worse than being argued with.
Well, Satan set himself up as equal to God, or wanting to be,
That's right.
and so
To laugh is to undercut that entire claim. It's to say it's not even worth arguing. Now we know that in a practical sense, that we would rather, even if we don't like people arguing with us, we would rather people argue with us than say, you're not worth arguing. Or your claim is not even worth answering. That dismissal feels worse. So to say we only buy truth, and by implication there is no truth here, hits at the very heart and the foundation of Vanity Fair, and it cannot be dismissed because their very existence relies on being taken seriously. You've got to take it seriously that this is important. Vanity Fair is worthwhile. To go back to my regular C.S. Lewis allusions, if the door of hell is locked on the inside, what would happen if you see somebody unlock the door and walk out? What happens to everybody else? Maybe they leave too.
They leave.
You know, if everybody is sitting in a prison cell and nobody's ever tested the door, and the first person after an hour of sitting there finally shakes it and it opens up and they leave, well, everybody else might leave too.
Sure.
I mean, maybe there'll be a couple of numbskulls who sit there like, no, we're not supposed to go. But all of those people at Vanity Fair were given hints of it at the end. That other people started, well, why are they not having a good time? Have you ever been doing something that you felt pretty good about, or you didn't think about it all, but when somebody doesn't want to do it, it makes you stop and think? Huh. So this was like the worst feeling of guilty responsibility for me. The end of my senior year in seminary, we got released from the diocese, which had not happened in this diocese before, where all of the seminarians were told there are no jobs for you back home. You are free to go wherever you want. Because there was kind of a traditionally there's sort of a mutual relationship. We sponsor you, we assume you come back, you get sponsored, you want to come back because there's opportunity back home. So we got released, and I wound up, the dean took pity on me and connected me with a bunch of other bishops, and we flew all over the place. very furiously trying to get some, because it was very little time left to get a bunch of jobs. And I remember being in a church, I won't name it, I won't even name the area because I still feel so awful about this. And it was a really neat church, very big. The guy had been there for 15, 16 years, really grown it up into something really pretty remarkable. School, a gymnasium, all the sort of stuff that I think is awesome and fun. But it was in another part of the country. It was kind of in the middle of nowhere. And ultimately we said thanks, but no thanks. We felt called to be closer to home and stuff sort of worked in a different direction. So maybe about 2 years later, I come across his name in some other kind of church publication about being somewhere else. And it was really weird. And I reached out to this guy. And he said, when you told me no, it made me rethink my life. No. That's like the worst guy. No. I felt awful. Like, now I'm not responsible for what this guy did, but it was like the strangest, unexpected comment I'd ever heard. That you offered an assistant's position to somebody and he said no. I mean, just move on. But there was a kernel of it that I sort of understood, that if you are doing something and someone else looks at it and says, nah, I don't like that, maybe it gives you a second thought about what you're doing. Anyway, it was a really bizarre story for me, but these people could be having the time of their lives at Vanity Fair until they see somebody who isn't. And maybe, just maybe, not all of them, but what if even one of them says, well, maybe I'm the one who's wrong. They don't seem to be having a good time. And now that I think about it, this stuff does look kind of cheap. And maybe this isn't as fun as I thought it was. When you're in a crowd psychology is a really funny thing. You can start doing stuff you never would have done on your own. And now maybe there's people who start thinking, huh. And when even one lost sinner is welcome to the kingdom of heaven, all the angels rejoice. Well, I've got to think there's something similar in the opposite direction, that when even one escapes the clutches of the demonic is infuriated. Is that because every soul is of infinite value as it is to God? No. I just think at the heart of evil is this greedy avarice.
Sometimes they double down.
And this, what's the vice? Not envy, covetousness. So quickly, to covet something is a little bit different than envying something. The way it's explained to me always made a lot of sense. The reason why the commandment is to not covet thy neighbor's house or whatever. Coveting is not, I want what you have. It adds, and I don't want you to have it. That's what makes it covetous. Not that I want that water bottle that's in front of you, I've got to have that, and I'm going to snatch it away from you because I want it and I don't want you to have it. So even if you produced another bottle to give to me, I wouldn't be satisfied, because it's not just about the bottle, it's about you not having it. So at the heart of the demonic, isn't there some element of, it's not just that I lose something, God cannot gain a thing. So it's like the fires burn so hot and so high because the stakes are so, the covetousness says, I don't even have to like it or even want it that much. I just don't want you to have it. And that pettiness, that childishness, that selfishness, I think that's at the heart of evil and this place. It's an evil place. And so if somebody challenges even its existence, it's got to be destroyed. It's too risky to dismiss it because people are watching. We can't let them get the idea that this place isn't the be all end all. They can't leave. It's Hotel California. You can come in, you can't check out. So describe the trial. That's really the bulk of the chapter.
They have three people who come in to talk against him.
Okay.
And I thought it was interesting that the person who comes in to start talking, he goes, wait, you didn't swear on the oath. Like he's gonna tell the truth.
Right, right. So this is when they say it's a trial, there is a trial. There's a judge and there's a jury and they call witnesses. Who is the judge?
They just didn't say they were fair.
No, it never says fair, but it is a trial. Lord Hate Good. What he's like. And so Christian and faithful, what's their attitude towards this trial? It's pretty crazy. You're thrown into prison because you said, I don't want to buy what you're selling. And now they're threatening you with a trial and a sentence.
They're sort of submissive. They're not fighting back.
They don't fight back. So I'm reminded of a couple of things, Jesus before Pilate, so he opens not his mouth. But I also think there is a sense of submission to God's will, that this trial is a part of it. From the beginning, they're connecting the fact that the evangelist just told them that one of them would die. So I think they're both assuming this is connected to what the evangelist said. And if that is God's will, then so be it. But they seem very sanguine about it. Not like going along with it, but they don't seem like there's no sense of resistance. So we've got three witnesses that are called forward. Who are they? Envy, superstition, and flattery.
And flatterer.
Okay, so quickly, what's the testimony of envy like? Oh, but he has to be sworn in. That was fun.
Which one?
Envy gets sworn in. So what is envy like?
Envy saying that they don't abide by anything that's happening.
Okay.
And so it's kind of showing why aren't they abiding? I would prefer to be as strong as they are if he's envious.
All right. I myself heard him once claim that Christianity and the customs of our town contradicted each other and could not be reconciled. He condemns our praiseworthy good deeds, and also he condemns us in doing them. Now, how might you connect that to envy? I think somebody kind of just did it though, but there is something envious about. It's interesting, it's described as disloyal. He's accused of disloyal notions. How does disloyalty come into this?
Loyalty is one of those things that sometimes it doesn't have to do with what's true and what's right.
Okay.
But you're loyal, that's what counts.
Okay. Like I'm gonna stand with you. I've got your back even when I don't agree with you. And that seems like a positive. I think there's a reason why it's being described as disloyalty. That's kind of purposeful to the text. Any thoughts about that? I'm going to throw this up there and you guys tell me if you think I'm on this. We assume when you say somebody is disloyal that that loyalty should be a part of things. Like you don't even bring up disloyalty unless you expect loyalty. How is faithful being disloyal? Again, remembering who built this town. There is a presupposition you are owned by the devil. And when you speak against him, you are being disloyal. Remember where you're from.
Yeah.
I'm suggesting that that's all part of this overarching thing. It's kind of, we get a little in there about, the town that you're from. And that happens periodically about being from the city of destruction and, want to go back and what's your hometown and all this kind of stuff. So disloyalty, I think, might be a little bit of an allusion to.
Satan says he
Yes.
won over Adam, so when you're the son of.
Right. So your loyalty should be to the devil. And by refusing to buy, by mocking, by insulting, you're being disloyal to your rightful owner. Except, of course, faithful and Christian would say, no, I have been bought with a price. And I am no longer a slave to sin and death. But I have a new master whose yoke is easy and whose burden is light. Just a thought. So what about superstition? What is superstition's testimony like? Because he's also known as false devotion.
He's talking about how, he says that Christian faithful say that the way that they worship would never please God.
Right.
And so that's false.
Okay. So, and superstition, this is, the natural result of falling such a claim, if our worship is in vain, then our sins are not forgiven, therefore we are damned. This is my testimony against him. So it's like, in essence, they're saying correct things. There's even some clarity to it. It's just what is in dispute is not the implication. What is in dispute is whether or not faithful is telling the truth. Lila, you're going to say something? I thought you looked like you're about to say something. Oh. So the consequences are correct. The issue then hinges, this is kind of like that libel or slander thing. If it's true, that's what's in dispute. For faithful to say that what they're doing is incompatible with right worship. Now, why would a place like Vanity Fair be filled with people who speak in such pious terms? They're not speaking like everybody should like the fires of hell. They're talking about how dare he say that we're not honoring God. I mean, they're saying things that feel a little backwards for a town built by the devil. Why?
Self-deception.
Self-deception. Why would that be important in a place like Vanity Fair?
You're not telling the truth, so.
Yeah, when you're persuaded you're own right.
Yeah, and if you can be persuaded that you're right, you'll keep doing what you're doing. I'm just truly excellent at justifying my own behavior. So if I want to do it, I can come up with the absolute best reasons why. Clever, insightful. I know I shouldn't, but if I want to, I can come up with these really great things. So
that's what superstition is basically saying. The result of following a claim of falsehood by them means we are damned.
Right. I want to do what I want to do. But if I can justify it by saying it's all working out, but he's countering that to saying it's not. So that's got to be stopped. We've got one last one, flatterer. What's flatterer?
You assume that everything he would say would be in your favor, kind of puffed up and just.
Okay.
Glib.
He dared to criticize all the leaders,
Right. So
including the judge.
flatterer, I almost expected to flatter faithful, but instead his flattery seems to be more about flattering the judge and the jury. He said unspeakable things that I can't even tell you. But I can say that it was impeaching the character of a luminary such as yourself and such other upstanding citizens like Lord Carnal Delight and Lord Luxurious and old Lord Lusty. How dare you speak against Lord Lusty?
Sorry, I didn't read this.
Faithful is very calm and he wants to speak in his defense. And it's worth noting that even by saying, may I speak a few words, the judge is first, but then, okay, go ahead, just so everyone, because people are watching. Just so everyone can know that we've dealt with you in the right manner. And so what is Faithful's response?
He says first that everything is directly contradictory to Christianity. That's like the first thing that he says.
That's
The judge is not being very kind.
Yeah,
And he said, if I said anything wrong, point it out.
that's right.
Yeah,
We've had a lot of hand waving.
let's hear what you wicked
Um,
renegade has to say.
There's a maxim in the law. The lawyers say this kind of stuff to each other. It's something like when the facts are on your side, pound on the facts. When the law is on your side, pound on the law. When neither the facts or the law are on your side, pound on the table. The idea being you just shout and make a lot of noise and say how terrible this is, but you gloss over the specifics because you know the specifics are not on your side. There are no specifics offered in any of these. And that's what Faithful says. And you got to go person by person to envy, to superstition, and to Faithful by countering them by saying, I have done absolutely nothing that is not true by the word of God. And if I have, you just point out chapter and verse. Go ahead.
For true worship, a divine faith is required. And there can be no divine faith without divine revelation.
And we have very much a, here I stand and I can do no other. And faithful is ultimately faithful. And so what is the response?
Condemned and returned to his cell.
Yeah. Yep, because
It's tortured.
you have, there is the penalty for this must be death. The judge explains this to the jury. This is like juror instructions, except what is he doing other than recounting Old Testament stories? He said,
He picked the kings and said, what
that's
they-
right. Pharaoh, who was on our side, said, you've got to kill all the firstborn males, otherwise they're going to cause, they'll be too numerous, they'll cause trouble. And Nebuchadnezzar, he was on our side. And he said, if you don't fall down and worship, you are going to have to be thrown to a fiery furnace. Darius, if you don't fall down and worship, you're going to have to be thrown into the lion's den. So he's recounting these stories, which again, we see as stories of faith from the persecuted's point of view. The judge of Vanity Fair is all taking the side of the power, which was standing in opposition to God. But everybody's in agreement. If you don't do what we say, the only fit sentence is death. And then we get to the jury. The jury of your peers. Mr. Blind Man, no good, malice, love lust, live loose, heady, high mind, enmity, liar, cruelty, hate light, and unforgiving. And I would say we could go person by person and give a, why would they be on the jury? But I don't think we even have to because their names like pretty much tell it all. And so they all stand in violent agreement that Faithful must die. Yes.
Ends of the
By ends. So, where are we?
140.
Yeah, so we'll hold on to that one for just a second, because that's in that next section.
It's fine.
So they torture him. And then he is stoned, stabbed, and burned to ashes.
Yeah.
And they not only, go overboard, above and beyond. This is digging up the corpse and shooting it kind of stuff. But we also have elements of the classic ways of martyrdom all tied together. And what is the end result of his death but martyrdom? For he is taken immediately. The chariot,
Immediately to heaven.
and he gets to pass go and go directly
To
go-
the celestial kingdom.
for faithful was faithful unto death, and so his reward is in heaven. And anything else about Vanity Fair and Faithful?
The chariot of Elijah.
The chariot of Elijah. My father, I see the.
Yeah.
chariot. All right, so let's try to hit chapter 8. This one, there's length to it, but didn't feel as involved as chapter 7 to me.
7 to me was good.
Yeah, so we're in chapter 8, and now he's met Mr. Byends. So we've got a new, we have a new pilgrim.
I thought it was interesting, just a minor point though, that a few people in the town said, maybe these guys are right.
Right.
And they helped Christian get out.
Yeah, and again, there's that danger why they can't just let him go. Because if they see that there's a way out, the Berlin Wall was never constructed to keep the West out, right? Why was it constructed? To keep the East in.
Yeah.
You can't, this is not about a wall to protect us.
You didn't get shot going in.
No, it's because we can't let you escape. And as soon as people know there's an escape, you might lose them. And some did.
Yeah.
So we meet Hopeful, who was persuaded to become a pilgrim after witnessing the martyrdom. So the martyrdom of Hopeful has actually already engendered that next generation of pilgrims, at least in Hopeful. And so he's walking with Christian, and they meet Mr. Byends. So if there was confusion about what that meant, I think, so I'm happy for people to toss their 2 cents and to try to define this. I think Byends is sort of like about the ends justifying the means. The ends, the way that you pursue something is the only thing that's important. So, or rather, the end is the only important thing.
Yeah.
So a lot of what this guy talks about sounds good, but the way or the reason or the motivation for doing it always winds up being bad. And so it kind of spoils the whole thing. Does that make sense? Okay, so we've got this good new interaction between Hopeful and Christian, another pilgrim along the way, and then Byends wants to join them. He wants to join them. He wants to walk with them. And what's Hopeful's perspective on that? Sure, so more the merrier. What's Christian's response to that?
Wait a minute.
I know this guy.
Yeah.
Know this guy. Not dissimilar to a couple of chapters ago. Remember when who was it that wanted to join? And Faithful said, sure.
Faithful wanted to go look at the Southern Line.
So now we have,
Oh, wait, that's coming.
that's this one.
Yeah.
So now he knows Mr. Byend. What is the problem with Mr. Byend that Christian is familiar with?
He knows the town he come from, the street he lives on, and some of the people there, and they know about him and have told him stories about him.
Yes.
And he's not really a.
And he's not a
believer.
nice guy.
No. Where's he from? What part of town is he from?
Their speech.
Fair speech. Fair speech. So he speaks good words. But on the inside, he's rotten.
Wants religion that's calm and comes to pass.
I like it easy. I go with what the crowd thinks is good.
Yeah.
And if I think it's good, then it all works out for everybody.
Good politician.
He's an excellent politician because he seems to be concerned about which way the wind is blowing and then move in that direction.
Can change
Um,
the dime.
so we've got kind of an impasse here where Christian doesn't want him around. Why doesn't he seems very vociferous about this. Why does Christian not want him around?
He's a scoundrel.
He is a
That's what-
scoundrel and he could have a negative impact. A guy saying good things that lead nowhere, after a while, might get you to go the wrong way. Might cause trouble later. So, here's the text. You're free to walk with us. If you're to walk with us, you must go against the wind and the tide. Are you willing to do that? Could you welcome religion in rags? And could you stand with those who are faithful, but who are disfavored by the popular kids? And he's, oh. I will never desert my long-standing principles. I mean, I'll just walk alone if I have to, but why would I possibly do these things? And Buy-in has been kind of caught, and so he sort of separates himself off, but now he's found some guys who are also walking, hold the world, money, love, save all. Why would they all be walking together?
Certainly in agreement.
They're in agreement. So we've got to, remember the allegory is usually trying to make a very deliberate, very specific point. What point are we finding in this section?
Well, I want to be with the cool kids.
Okay. Now I'm going to say these are guys, because I think the allegory is pretty 1 + 1 = 2 at this point. They're all on the path. So I think this is an indictment of the church. The sort of church that wants to go with the culture, the sort of church that wants to go with the popularity, the sort of church that wants the easy road. This is not crud. Who was Pat, maybe you remember, they were brother theologians from the 40s and 50s. And
Oh, yes, from
Christ in
Boston.
culture.
Yep.
What's the name?
They were from Boston. One was named Philip, and I forget the name of the other one.
Niebuhr. And a Christ without a cross. So the preaching of a religion that satisfies what you already want satisfied. The itching ears that people want to hear what they want to hear,
Yeah.
not what's right or what's true. So that is a gospel that is easy. That is a gospel that makes no demands of you. That is a gospel that says whatever you already like, well, God likes it too. Aren't you spiffy? And I think because these are guys who are walking the path, even though they're a little bit behind and they want to catch them and talking, I think that's why, because this is an indictment of not the world in the sense of those who are outside of the faith. This is an indictment against people who say they are walking the path, but they will actually never make it to the end and they will lead others astray. It's an indictment against churches or Christians who pervert the gospel for ways that basically would fit in at Vanity Fair. The stuff that strokes your ego, the stuff that makes you feel popular or makes you feel happier with yourself. And so each of these hold the world. I want to follow Jesus, but I want to hang on to the stuff that the rest of the world says is important. Mr. Moneylove, I want to follow Jesus, but money is super important and I really love it. Mr. Save All, I want to follow Jesus, but only if everybody can come to.
Oh, yeah, we should have to, must be inclusive.
Must be inclusive in a rather tyrannical way.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of that's sort of the dark underside of universalism, is it absorbs people who don't want to be there. Well, if everyone is saved, then you have no choice. It's by force. You will, or there's not even an or else. There's no option. And so they have these little interactions here. Because let's see, Moneylove, Hold the World, Save All, and the four of them are all our fast friends. And so they're kind of, we have this sort of interlude where we're following them for about a page and a half without Christian and Hopeful. And then we go back to Christian and Hopeful. So they're kind of interacting with each other about how they can mess with Christian and Hopeful.
Whom they say are overly righteous and rigid.
That's right. According to their arrogant behavior, they believe it's their duty to rush ahead. I'm in favor of waiting for the right wind and the right tide. They're risking it all for God. In an instant, I would grasp every advantage to secure my life and property. Finally, they wind up getting kind of an interaction with Christian and Hopeful. And how does that go? We have some things that are interestingly laid out, some scenarios. First of all, this is Moneylove. This is on 143. It's not sinful to desire more pay. Since for opportunity came his way, it must be in the providence of God for him to pursue it. So we've got this little, like, once upon a time, there was a pastor who wound up going to a bigger church. Right? And so they start dissecting this and start showing how their perspective is correct. Because, well, this guy left a smaller church to go to a larger church. What's wrong with that? Is there something sinful about bigger churches? Well, of course not. Well, then he did the right thing, right? And so he kind of tells half of the story each time, again, trying to point out how Christian is wrong for judging Mr. Moneylove and all these other guys, because these things are, it's not bad to want more money. It's not bad to work. As a matter of fact, are you saying that bigger churches are somehow less holy than smaller churches? Are you saying we shouldn't have bigger churches? Are you saying that bigger churches are intrinsically wicked? What's the problem with the way that he's describing this scenario?
Well, he said, I see no reason why he shouldn't do it, but the bigger church expects him to alter his principles.
Oh, so there's like he says the true part really loud, but he says the other part a lot softer. So in telling the entire story, there are problems with the big church. Well, all you have to do is compromise a little bit, and you get more people to minister to, more opportunities to spread the gospel, more money to provide for your family, on and on and on, which each of those things in and of themselves, I would say are neutral or good, but the whole thing gets spoiled by finally admitting in the scenario that in order to do any of this, he's got to compromise his godly principles. It's such a small thing. Well, what does it profit a man to gain the whole world? And so we have this sort of list here about things that get presented. It's not wrong for these things, and on its face, they're right. It isn't wrong, except of course, you kind of have a little hook at the end. And it's that hook that gets it and spoils it every time. It's not sinful to marry a wealthy woman. No. But if you're marrying her for her wealth and not for her, there's the hook at the end. Each of these feels like you almost don't want to argue with them, but you have to wait until the whole scenario is explained, because there's always something at the end, a stinger that, you know, the bee is real cool until he right at the end, and it ruins or spoils or changes everything. Let's see. We have a lot of, I'm working on 145 and kind of near the end. We have a lot of doing the right thing for the wrong reason. Hamor and Shechem wanted the daughters and the cattle of Jacob, so they got circumcised, not for the covenant, but just to get something that they wanted. The Pharisees, long prayers for show. Judas, who gets in good with Jesus to control the money bag. Simon the sorcerer. Any of this stand out to you in any particular fashion? We're moving quick because we're going long.
All of them.
I mean, all of them basically one little thing that kind of ruins it. The one thing I want to point out, because this isn't well known anymore, there is a phrase, and it's something that I have to actually be like, I have to take into account by vocation. It's called simony. Simony is, in the context of the church, the selling of sacraments. And it's one of the reasons, not because I'm worried about it, but because I think it, by extension, like, I don't charge to do a funeral. I never have. 21 years, I never have. Sometimes people give me money, honorariums or gifts or whatever. I mean, I'll take it, or are you sure? But when they ask, there might be a cost to rent the facility. There might be a cost to have a organist play, whatever. What about, you know, my fee to officiate, to preach, to zero.
I don't know.
Because I'm independently wealthy and don't need the money? No.
No.
But because I don't want ministry to be a pay-for-play activity. I am supported by what people give. There's no two ways about that. But I never want it tied to, I only do what I do because you're paying me. As a matter of fact, if you paid me a little more, I would do it a little better.
Yeah.
No, simony is about Simon the magician, Simon Magus, in Acts, who was performing miracles for pay and gets zapped because of it. So we don't sell the sacraments. I don't sell my ability to do the Eucharist. Give me $20 and I'll give you some bread to go. No, right? It's not that I'm worried I'm going to become Simon Magus. It's just more along the lines of, clearly that's the wrong thing to do. I think the right thing to do is, this is freely available for all. Okay. The snare, the silver mine, last, this one's quick.
Yeah.
What is the silver mine and what is the snare?
Greedy prophet.
Okay. On a little hill called Lucre, which means wealth, also called greedy prophet. Lucre means wealth, but it's got kind of a negative connotation. Not wealth in a clinical sense, but it always meant, like, you typically hear filthy lucre. It's almost like one word. It's ill-gotten gains almost. Greedy prophet. And there's a rare silver mine. And what happens to the pilgrims who investigate this silver mine?
They fall off.
They get too close to the edge. They fall down. The ground is unstable. You ever gotten close to the edge of something and you think you're safe, but it's a little softer than you realize? I was a kid. I was going with my dad fishing in a little pond not far from our house, and it was cold. Only important later, and I walk up to the bank, down I went because it wasn't the bank stopped, and there was a bunch of weeds that had grown up on the edge. I didn't see the difference, and there was a steep drop off, and I mean, I went down. I might have gone over my head. My dad had to reach down and pull me out, and I was wearing a big heavy coat because it was cold, which was instantly soaked. So you think you know where the edge is, but what if you're wrong? And that's what happens. You get too close to the silver mine. Before you know what happens, you fall down and you die. You fall down. It says some got so grievously injured, they never recovered. So why would anyone risk it?
That car commercial where they got guys up in the mountains and they go right to the whoa.
Yeah. So it's got a salesman attached who says, you got to see this. It's so awesome. And it's totally worth it.
Yeah.
You got to believe me, it's completely worth it. Who was trying to sell them on this?
Demas.
Okay. Did anybody have to look up Demas?
It's 105.
I looked it up because I knew I should know it, but I didn't remember. This is one of Paul's companions
And he had done wrong.
who, in the lurch, abandons Paul
Yes.
and runs off.
Yeah.
Oh,
Okay, so Demas, and maybe that's part of the reason why he is so enticing to pilgrims on the road, because he's basically one of them, or he used to be, and he can make it sound like this is worthwhile.
Come to me.
Just take a
he's got
second.
all the right words. Yeah.
Yep, he has all the right words because he did it himself. He's been there, he's done that.
And it's funny because it's riches again. It's like after all of this, we're back to yet another temptation again.
And it seems to be a recurring theme. And yet, as much as we want to say, again, but how often does that happen to us? That the same thing because of temptation over and over and over again, or we deal with one and the similar thing, which you should, it's basically the same, that becomes a temptation. And how many things that we struggle with, we never seem to ever completely put behind us
Yeah.
over the course of our life.
It's true.
Hopeful comes very close, too close. But in the end,
He goes with Christian.
he goes with Christian, and they are able to move back down the path. We have one final monumental warning, and what is that? What is the final monumental warning of our chapter?
Salt shaped like a woman.
Lot's wife.
Yeah.
He does not sin because she goes back and commits the sins of Sodom.
No.
Her punishment comes just from the desire to look back. Putting your hand back on the plow.
Not fair.
This is,
Yeah.
well, just maybe one more time.
Yeah.
One more taste. Once more before I quit. Whatever it might be.
Look back with a covetous heart.
That isn't just looking back in and of itself is not wrong or bad or sinful in the context. Why was it so destructive for her to look back? Do you recall?
She really wanted to go.
She really wanted to, that's true. But this is also in the sense of, this is a little bit related to, why does God punish Adam and Eve for eating fruit?
Well, God had told them not to look
Told
back.
not to.
Yeah. They-
They were told, don't even look back. So it's not just the mechanics of looking back, like as though looking behind you is somehow there's some terrible thing. It is overtly disobedient. And it's because her heart wanted what it shouldn't have wanted. Those two things combined, and that was her disobedience. which was just as destructive as the disobedience of the people who never left. And there's the warning. We keep getting tempted by similar things. Maybe that's going to keep happening. We need to see what's this example in front of us, this negative example.
Why do alcoholics keep being tempted by alcohol?
You know, I know where this road leads, but now we see her face to face before we take another step, and we need to remember we can't look back. Can't look back. I have decided to follow Jesus. No turning back. No turning back. Okay, we start moving real fast by the end because that's what happens when we hit 2. Anything else? Anything that we missed or any other kind of lingering questions? Yeah.
I just had a little comment. This chapter spoke to me a lot because we're in the process of selling our house, and just reading it made me think. I mean, I've been grieving the loss of this house that I've been in since I was married, raising my kids, all this, and it just made me think, why am I holding on to it so strong? What is that it's just so hard to let go when God has all this good and this new place here? Time to let that go.
Yeah.
So this was
Good. I will not say that the hurts of our heart are bad or wrong, especially when we think about past blessings. But the desire to recapture them or to kindle them longer than they ought to be can lead us to putting the gift above the gift giver and then losing the real benefit of either.
Okay.
I will never say that people moving away or selling a home that they've raised children in or whatever is, to grieve that is wrong, because my heart would break just thinking about it. I know how hard it was to leave our house in South Florida and all those are the sort of things. And I think the grief is not wrong, but just is there a way to hold on to that where you cannot receive? It's like my hands are already full of the past. I cannot receive what God desires to give me now. So maybe you can't hold it in your hands. Maybe just put it in your pocket or something. So the joy and blessings of that house can't be stolen from you. And they'll still be there even if you're not in that home. But now with hands open, the blessings that are new this morning can still be received. Because it's going to be every day. Okay, anything else?
The next 2.
What are we going to do? Do we want to try to do 2 again? The next one is kind of a short chapter, but it's a lot to cover when we talk about it.
Yeah.
So it's up to you guys. Do you want to do just chapter 9 or do you want to do 9 and 10?
Well, why don't we prepare for both and then
Okay.
just see how it
Does
goes?
that seem reasonable? Prepare for both and see how it goes?
Okay.
Okay.
Sounds
So
good.
we'll try 9 and 10, but if it gets to be too much, we'll stop and we'll carry over 10 on the next discussion.
7 was so short and yet.
I know.
but it
We
was
wound
so
up,
good.
yeah. Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.
Bye. Bye.